Welcome to the Second Line Show. I'm Nola Nash. Let's let the good times roll. Hi, welcome to the Second Line Show. Once again, I am your host, Nola Nash. I've got a global station going on here on this show today. One of the things I want to make sure that you guys are watching us at this brand new time today of an early afternoon show. If you're watching, please go ahead and start dropping those comments and questions into whatever page you happen to be watching from, whether you were watching on Nola's Second Line, The Right Review, Reading is My Passion, or on YouTube, or my page as well. Go ahead and put those comments in there. We're going to start getting to some of those questions and comments along the way. If you've not given StreamYard permission to use your Facebook profile, then you are going to show up as Facebook user. And we do like to actually address the folks who are here by name. So if you've not given that permission to StreamYard, go ahead and put your name in your comment. Just say, hi, it's whoever your fabulous name is, and let us know that you're watching. So we have got an amazing show. I'm so happy to have my producer, guest coordinator, and fabulous friend, Annie McDonald, who some of you may not realize is always a part of this show, even though it is usually just me on the screen with the authors. Annie is in the background doing some amazing work. So shout out to Annie for everything that she does to pull these shows together and everything that she is doing to help me bring you guys a fantastic 2021 lineup. There are some great shows coming down the pipe, and we are happy to be bringing 2020 to a close with some fabulous authors who are currently all over the world right now. We've got folks here. We got Michael's in Mexico. We've got Patricia in Canada. We've got folks in France. This is truly a global show today, and we're really excited to be bringing the year to a close with a fantastic group of people. And we're going to just kick it off in style. We've got lots of folks who are already popping in to the comments section here. So thank you guys for doing that and letting us know that you're here. We've got some familiar faces. Sam, your mom is here. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Mom.
I love that. I absolutely love it. Hi, Sam's mom. So we've got some great folks that are joining us, and we will continue to keep an eye on those comments. But I'm going to toss right now to Annie McDonald, who is going to give us a little bit more background on why this show came to be, this group of people, why they came to be, and anything that Annie would like to say. Girlfriend, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Nola. This show wouldn't exist without you now. So let's give props to Nola. You know, it's all about love here. So thank you very much, Nola, for what you said. It was very kind. The reason why this show came to fruition was we thought, what could we do at the end of the year that could be fun? And this year, everyone's been couch traveling. So I just was like, where do I go the most? Where are my books located the most? And they're mostly located in France. And they're mostly located in France because of Miss Patricia Sands. She introduced me to France many, many years ago. And ever since I delved into reading her books, I started reading other French books because I was enamored with France. She makes you fall in love with the smells, the food, the environment, the language, the people, everything. So you need to know more. And when you're waiting on a book of hers, you need to read another book about France. So I said, how much fun would it be if we had a ticket to France, a ticket to Paris, have a couch tour where everyone could meet people that are from France or write about France and speak with Patricia. And I loved when I interviewed with Craig and Julien a couple of months ago. That was so much fun. So we had to have them on. So thank you for being here. And Sam, I interviewed with you when we did the debut 2020 authors. And I also watched you interview with the Jane Austen Society of India. So that was a lot of fun too. So, you just had to be part of it if you said yes. And then Lisa, you had to be part of it because everybody said you had to be part of it. You're like, I think you are the heart of France
Aw.
to everybody here. So it was just wonderful. And Michael, he's the wine guy. So he had to be.
He's the wine guy.
He's the wine guy.
Cheers.
So we all toast to the wine guy.
Yeah.
To the wine guy.
So Michael Higgins, he goes around. He has a lot of books that are full of glorious photographs of different regions with wine. And he just put out a book in like October for the France Bordeaux region. And it's just beautiful. And it's won an award already, or maybe more than one. But it's a beautiful coffee table book. It's gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So we had to invite Michael on. So I think we got everything covered. We have the diner, the famous diner. We have the wine. We have the people. We have the authors. We have the foodies. And we have the two end caps here that love France. So here we are bringing France to you, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Well, other than a single day that I spent in Chamonix, and it was just, literally hanging out in a tourist town for a few hours, not really a visit to France. My connection to France and to all things French comes from my roots in South Louisiana. And so while you guys are going to talk about France and all things French in France, when we get to the New Orleans History and Mystery segment, I'm going to give you a little bit of history on the French Quarter, just so you kind of understand why it is so very French down there as well. So we'll get to my French connection here a little bit later. But for now, one of the things that we want to make sure that you guys at home are getting to experience is a taste of France from people who know it best and who have their hearts and sometimes their bodies quite firmly planted on French soil. So we're going to, one of the people I wanted to start off with is Lisa. Lisa, you have got a wonderful YouTube series where you're going into parts of France and Paris that people don't necessarily go to. And that's one of the things I always like about taking people to New Orleans is there's the touristy places, there's the things everyone must do. And then there's the things that you do when you know the city well. And so enjoying taking people down to New Orleans and doing those things with them, I was really enjoying your look at Paris in kind of that, this is what the locals do way. So what are some things that you've discovered, after you went over there? And your book is essentially your journey into kind of becoming that part of that fabric of the city and a city that maybe you had seen more through a tourist's eyes and now you see more like a local. So tell everybody a little bit about the things that you find special about the city that they may not know just simply as a tourist.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, when I first came here as a tourist twice a year, I was definitely like Emily in Paris. I was definitely goggle-eyed and stayed in certain very chic neighborhoods. And then when I went to buy an apartment, I couldn't afford any of those chic neighborhoods. So by default, I ended up in a neighborhood that's, been called the last patch of real Paris. And it's not glamorous at all. There's a lot of ugly modern buildings. It doesn't look like Paris at all. There's a post in my blog called, Yes, This is Paris. And I show you around my neighborhood. But it's what I love about it is how friendly it is. And how the locals all really know each other, and how we know there are local store owners, and how my wine guy knows stocks the wine that he knows that I like, and it's very much villages within a larger city. And I think that for tourists, one of the surprises is that they might not know if they don't live here is it's not all beautiful. It is a hard city to live in, but it can also be a really warm and friendly place, and especially in the little neighborhoods. And you find your favorite baker and your favorite butcher, and there really is the butcher and the baker, and you go to them. I don't buy in the grocery store. I'll go to my guys, and they, and you get these relationships. And there's something very old-fashioned about that I feel is really preserved here. Even though the city's really moving forward toward the future, there are still these things that are very French, that are very like being in an old little village from 1900.
Do you have a cheese guy?
I do have a cheese guy. He's a real Yes,
I'm fascinated by cheese guys.
I do.
I know so much. They're like wine guys. You guys just know everything, like every little nuance of something. And it's just fascinating how there's so much to know about that. And they take their cheese very seriously, just like they take their wine. And as you're talking about that, Lisa, an American in Paris, and really living there now and kind of having to find that little neighborhood and all of those things and living differently, because you don't just, we're not going to pull up to Super Target and go get everything we need in one place. And when we go to, we're living in a little neighborhood in Paris. Craig, you ran into some similar issues with opening an American diner, because there's not always going to be those American things. You're not going to get the New York bagels that, people would expect for breakfast. And, you're not going to have the Jimmy Dean's sausage at your local sausage guy. What do you do? How do you get everything that you need for your American diner in Paris? How is that? How did you face that challenge, and what did you learn in the process?
Well, I opened my first diner in 2003, and let me tell you, back then it was so hard to find these ingredients. From maple syrup, peanut butter, like you said, bagels, bacon was one of the hardest things for me to find. Real bacon. I went from butcher to butcher to butcher. And, the closest they came was Canadian bacon, which I love, but, my restaurant wasn't called Breakfast Necessities One. It was like, I needed the real bacon. and so it was just through that. And then eventually through a different contact, I found this great butcher who had been down at Les Halles, which is where the old market used to be. And they had been there for over 100 years, and they made us the bacon, and we've been using them since. Really cool. And I was able also to find a supplier that brought a lot of American products over to Disneyland Paris and in these big shipping containers. And I was able to add on what we needed onto that into that catalog. And so since then, but boy, have things changed. You can go into any store now and find maple syrup, peanut butter, all these things, right, Lisa, which you couldn't find before. Even pancake ice, which is not very good actually.
But even in the last 5 years, it's changed.
Last 5 years. So now it's pretty easy to find things. Yeah. You can even find more for anyone on the East Coast, which is
that's my sorority sister.
Yeah.
And she apparently has had very similar experiences living in Stuttgart. So it's kind of that American lifestyle versus the European lifestyle, not necessarily just Paris. And I know when I was in Europe, everything was very fresh. It was very local. And when you come back, it's like, food here doesn't seem to have the same flavor as it does in Europe, because it's coming so far, it's preserved so much, and man, I miss it. I do miss
the butter.
Yes,
butter, right?
Right.
It's like I want to get the European butter.
A lot of my customers will say, "How is it that an American diner is better here in France than it is in America?" I'm like, "It's the ingredients. It's all about ingredients."
The original tagline of my blog used to be, "I moved here so I could take home the butter."
And had so many kinds of different butters. Oh my gosh. You go to the grocery store, it's almost as big as the yogurt section. The yogurt section takes up a wall. And the butter is also, you have choices.
They love their cow products.
Yes, lots of dairy, which is funny because you don't really think about, you think about, good creams, you think about cheeses, you think about a good butter, but you don't think about cows in France. Like that's, it's not really my picture of France, is there's a bunch of cows over there that can give everybody some great cheese and butter. So it is interesting that you have that. It's like, I think cows.
I forget where they come from.
I don't think cows, but we like their cow products. And definitely the cow products in France are very, very fine things. And we enjoy them. Now, Sam, you've got recipes that are just so special. Your whole book is a little food focused. So tell us about how that came about. And as we're talking food, let's keep going with that one.
When I first moved here, I moved here 10 years ago, and I'm also French now too. Yay! I was integrating with a French family, and I learned how to cook French. I have 2 memoirs out, How to Make a French Family in 7 Letters. 7 Letters was the first one. I'm the wackadoo here that went, I'm going to write a guy I met 20 years ago and say, sorry. And now I'm married to him. Yeah. That's
It's such a great story.
And for the new book, it just made me mad. I found out only 1% of female chefs were Michelin starred. I decided to shy away from memoir, and actually Craig and we share the same publisher for our memoirs, Source Books.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's only so many memoirs you can write in menopause in France, or do I have COVID? So I moved on to women's fiction, and I love food. I love cooking. You know, I'm a determined chef, and I became very determined upon moving here to learn how to cook French, and voila, that's my story, I think.
I love it. That's awesome. Now, Patricia, and we're going to get to wine here in just a minute, Michael, so hang on with me. But Patricia, what?
I'm okay.
I know you. Yeah, you're fine. He's otherwise occupied. Michael's fine. We're all going to be fine by the end of the show. Patricia, now you normally spend a lot of time in France. A lot of your books bring us to France, just like Annie said. What types of foods, what types of things are you looking forward to most as you start thinking about your next trip into France? And I know you go to different regions. It's not just Paris. So you don't have to stay centered in Paris here if you want to go somewhere outside.
Sure. No, I would love to take you south. I mean, I love the time. We usually try to spend a week or so in Paris anyway, but the bulk of our time is spent in the south. And our first visit there, extended visit for a month, was in Menton, which is, just not far from Nice and just at the Italian border, actually. And we knew after spending a month there, which we did through home exchange, that was, that's how we spent most of our time in France. Oh, I'll sit on my hands.
You can talk with your hands, Patricia. It's okay.
I do.
You're going to do it too.
Yeah, in the first few years, it just so happened that we got into home exchanges, and it turned out that French people, we had a home in Florida as well, so we would use that for our exchange. And French people love to go to Florida in the summer when North Americans don't want to be there. So it worked out really well. And so we would go, and my husband was a physician getting close to retirement, so his schedule was flexible. So we could, go for a month or 2 months or 3 months. The longest we were there. I know, I'd be there all the time. We'd be there all the time if we could, but we have a big family, and we just can't leave them. But if we could live there 6 months a year, we'd be very happy. So anyway, the south of France, and what I'm looking forward to the most, besides everything, is going to the market, to the daily Provençal market in Antibes. Craig and Julien, you would be very familiar with that. And just as you've all spoken about, the fresh foods. I love how they use the terroir in France, where they tell you where everything is from. So it's an education every time you go shopping. Because
you also love the fabrics.
Pardon me?
You also love the fabrics.
I do. I love the fabrics. And all my family and friends have more tablecloths and placemats and napkins from Provence than they ever care to have. My brother has said, "Thank you very much. We love them, but we don't need any more." They're irresistible. So yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to everything.
Well,
now, go ahead, Annie.
I just wanted to say, I was waiting for you to talk, Patricia. Patricia, this whole thing did start to bring France to you, since were not able to go this year.
That's
and
so
I'm gonna
nice.
cry because I feel so bad that you haven't been able to go.
Well, I'm telling you, it seemed like a really strange year after 20 years of being there, to not be there. And especially because 7 years ago, I started doing tours in France, women's tours based on my books. And so that was always part of what I was there for. And honestly, that's the biggest joy in my life, is just, as you all know, I mean, sharing our passion for that country, right? No matter where it is that we're living. And so not being there to do a tour was really very weird. But Annie, as you say, there's always next year. So we live in hope.
So. Yes,
Yeah.
you gotta live in hope. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to kind of send this year off in a very positive way, very full of hope. It would be very depressing to sit here talking about a country that so many people know and love if we didn't have the hope that it could one day be somewhere that we could travel to again and to experience again. So the whole point is to bring hope, to bring that, that idea of a place, that knowledge of a place that we can share with other people who maybe have never been there. And so they can add this on their I'm going to travel to this place one day list, because we got to hope that one day we're going to be able to travel to those places we want to go again. And so, this is a great way for people to get to know your France, your Paris, in the way that you know and love it. And like Lisa shares on her YouTube channel, and all of these other experiences that are not the typical travel brochure experience, because there's more to every place than what you're going to see as the typical tourist thing to do. And there's so much of France to experience outside of Paris, which is why I love that you took us south there for a minute to talk about that. Now, Michael, you've done vineyards and wine tours all over the place. So what is it about France and Bordeaux, since this is your most recent book, what is it about Bordeaux that is just really special to you and kind of spoke to you through the wine and the vineyards and the photographs?
Bordeaux is beautiful. I mean, it's spectacularly beautiful. But the thing about it, from wine perspective, it's the center of the universe of wine. This is where Cabernet Sauvignon comes from. It's the most planted grape all over the world. And its home is Bordeaux, along with Merlot and Malbec and these really famous grapes. And it's really accessible. There is a new high-speed train a couple of years ago that was put in between Paris and Bordeaux. It takes 2 hours. You can't even get to the airport in Paris and get to Bordeaux faster than you can just go 2 hours from downtown to downtown. That's really nice. And this is the land of the famous wineries like the Mouton Rothschild. This is where this all occurs. And I think of it as the land of castles.
Yeah.
There are castles.
The photos
I will show you a picture of castles.
Yes, please.
My book is filled with pictures, but this is the cover of the book, and you can see, look at the beautiful French architecture with the gate. I'm trying to, this is like a mirror, where you go left.
Yeah, it is. It's all backwards. Or in reverse.
But it's gorgeous. And I think a lot of people think of the wineries being closed to the public, because that's really how it used to be. We make wine, leave us alone.
Yeah.
That really was how it used to be, but that's changing. And my book shows you the places that are open that you can go to.
Oh,
and
wow.
not just for a tasting, because first they got to be open, but they need to be open with an experience, like a food and wine tasting. Or, there's some really creative people there. Someone will give you a wine tasting up in a tree, and with a gorgeous view, of course.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things to do in Bordeaux now. And, I call it the mini Paris because it's historically beautiful. The downtown Bordeaux is the largest UNESCO World Heritage Site in the world. And they have these amazing monuments, not nearly as big and as famous as Paris, but it's spectacular to go see.
That's wonderful.
So now we've got Bordeaux, we've got Provence, we've got Paris. Julien, I'm going to pull you into the conversation a little bit here because you are our French native. Out of all of these Americans and Canadians who are talking here, we do have somebody who is actually French. So there he is. All of us on the screen do have Julien, who doesn't know how to eat a hamburger correctly.
For this show, he does. For this show, he's the right.
Sure. I know. You can have Julien. You shove it in your face, not a knife and fork. But like he said, we have to eat it civilized. We're civilized here in Paris, right? So, and Julien, I want to ask you, as somebody who was born and raised in France, what is it about your home that you would be the most excited to share with someone who's never been there before? What aspect of France is truly powerful and personal to you?
Easy. The number one thing is food. That's what it is. Because food is not just food for us. It's culture. This is how you go from your heart to someone else's heart. This is how you relate to other people. This is how you share your time together. This is how you communicate with other people. Food is more than just food here in France. So I would go from food, definitely.
That's beautiful.
I love that answer as someone who comes from South Louisiana, where we communicate with food as well. I mean, when you think South Louisiana, that's what you think of first. I mean, it's the food. Everybody says, oh my God, the food. And it is the food. And I love that you said that is how people relate to one another. As I was trying to explain the show to you guys and how this was all going to go, that South Louisianian in me said, it's a dinner party. It's like you're sitting down to a meal with a bunch of people that you have something in common with and you're chatting. Because that's, to me, how we communicate in Louisiana. We stand there over a picnic table full of crawfish and we talk and peel crawfish. I mean, that's what we do. And it is a great way to relate to other people culturally and just getting to know people over a plate of really good food and really good wine. It gives you something as an icebreaker to a conversation. If you can talk about the good food, the good wine, it's inevitably going to lead to other conversation. It's a great way to open up.
When I last spoke with Julien and Craig, they said something very similar to what you're saying, and it's very interesting because it stuck with me for a long time. They said, we don't rush our food. They don't rush their meal. Like, Craig came home one day, and he had already eaten his lunch, and Julien was devastated because he didn't understand how he had already eaten the lunch or something, the meal. They should be sitting down and eating it together. Something like that. Exactly. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes, it took him actually a couple of years to finally understand that the reason why I'm calling is to know when you're coming back so we can have lunch or dinner together, because that's something we do.
Right.
So at first, he was rushing into having dinner or lunch somewhere else and come back home and say, hey, I've been waiting for you. What for? Well, dinner. Oh, I already had it. Okay, thank you for telling me. I'm supposed to tell you, you know.
I think that's really special.
Well, coming from an Italian family, it's very similar. You know, the meals were sacred, and as busy as we were, I had things I did after dinner. I was in the theater, but whatever we did, we always had our meal together. And it's the one thing, like, and no offense, Julien, but I think you'll agree, you know, sometimes the people get to me a little bit here. As an expat, I get very frustrated by the la tête française. But when I see how much you guys love food, it's really hard to stay mad for very long. I mean, it's so endearing. And I will say, you know, when the cafes are closed right now, it's like Paris isn't Paris without the cafes. And we all talk about how, like, it's not, we don't know what to do with ourselves. Because there's no terraces to sit on. And that really is the heart of, it's not only the heart of French culture, it's the heart of Paris, is the cafe life. And that's all about food and sharing. It's a theme in my book as well. I call it the French Trinity, family, friends, and food. And it's something that is very addictive about this culture and something that really warms your heart to it very quickly, for me.
So how are you feeling
Growth
that
in
void?
America.
Yeah.
How am I feeling that void? There's no way to fill the void, and I think that's what's so. And I don't want to bring it down, but I mean it is very hard because I walk a lot, and I meet friends for walks, and there's plenty to do walking wise, especially in the holiday season. It's very pretty here, but there's nothing that really replaces sitting on a terrace and sharing that moment over a glass of wine. There's really nothing, and that's what's so shocking because we think. You know, you take it for granted. I have another project called Save the Paris Cafe because we are losing cafes here in Paris, and we just lost another one in my neighborhood. It's going to be some like sushi place. I don't know what to say there, but it's a movement that's trying to make people understand. Look, you know, it's not something you should take for granted, and we're seeing just how quiet and still and empty the city feels without its terraces, its cafe terraces.
We're doing takeout and delivery only, but the number of people in the neighborhood that are coming up just to have a conversation with us. We have the plastic at the door; they can't come in. But this elderly woman the other day, she's just like, "Oh, can I have a glass of wine? Can I just come in and sit down and talk?" And we're like, "It's coming soon, don't worry." But she stayed there outside, and we chatted, and you know, it keeps us to have a link at least to that part of the culture. Yeah,
For sure. Actually, if I could tell a little story, just while you're talking about how food is so important to people in France, and very simple incident that I want to share is one evening strolling through Antibes with a friend who is French. My husband and I had spent the day with them and had dinner, and we passed an ice cream place, a glacier, and he said, "Oh, would you like to have an ice cream? You know, it's really hot, and it would be a perfect evening to have an ice cream." And I don't know, my husband and I were being party poopers, I guess, or full. But we both said, "Well, no, we don't really feel like having one now, but you go ahead and have one. You know, we'll be happy to wait while you get it." And he goes, "Oh, no. I mean, you have ice cream together." He said, "For one person to have ice cream, this is not right. We would all have ice cream and we would all enjoy it together." And I mean, that really made an impression on me because it's really indicative of every aspect of food, isn't it? And Samantha, you must have had some amazing experiences when you first relocated.
Yeah, and I've been here for close to 11 years now. I am French now. Je suis française. Voilà. And that was a nightmare, everybody. It was a nightmare getting the interview and going through the red tape. But one thing I wanted to say, because Nola, you mentioned like the myth and reality, and one of the emails. There are a lot of myths for the French to be very cold. I come from a very warm French family. They're from the south. They're from Provence. I'm on the other side of the southwest. I'm in Toulouse. I would just say, like, it's amazing the stereotypes that people have, mostly for Parisians, though. Not for people from the south of France, because they are so warm here. I mean, my neighbor, they brought me cookies the other day. The other neighbor brings me nuts. It's like very much a community. Lisa, do you have anything to put on this? Do you think people are warmer in the south than they are in Paris?
I mean, I think if you talk collectively, yes, because the city, you know, collectively, the city, everyone's moving about and everyone's sort of cranky collectively. But I find that when you get to know, like, just like I was saying in my little neighborhood, you know, there's a woman who has this cute dress shop, and every day we stand and chit chat, and she's like, "Hey," you know. I mean, my wine guy, like, well, I probably know him too well, but you know, I find that you know, yes, I mean, it takes 5 years before anyone will ever invite you into their home for dinner, but I mean,
God, it was like 2 days for me. They're like, come on over.
Yeah, but yeah,
and I smile too much. That's also a bad thing to do in France. You're supposed to be like, but I'm like,
I know. It's hard to. I find it's hard to break in, but once you break in, you're like family. And it's even true in the neighborhood. Like my neighbor upstairs, she's always inviting me up for couscous. She's always making me. If she makes cookies, she makes these amazing Algerian cookies. She's always bringing me down a plate. So like this is in the heart of the city, but again, I think when it's the collective picture. But I think individually, there's still this desire. I mean, there's a desire to connect in this culture. I think that's why they have so much trouble with social distancing, because they just want to connect, and it's so
not hug. You want to connect, but not hug.
No. My friends are huggers, actually. My Parisian friends are huggers, believe it or not. I found my people.
As a Southerner, I think that's the part I
in Bordeaux, by the way. I mean, the people in Bordeaux are so friendly. They're so special. And after going there, I mean, I've been there 6 times now, and I have such good friends. It's almost as if I need to spend more time with my friends than there is time to go see wineries. They're really nice, special, warm people.
That's
so,
nice.
Julien,
That's
as our Frenchman here, why do you think it is that we have this perception of the French as being a bit distant, and yet, once you get to know them, they're very warm? Why do you think it's hard for the French to let people in? I mean, do you find that to be the case for you, or is this just sort of kind of like big city, like you don't think about New Yorkers being very friendly and outgoing, but people in the South tend to be, overly friendly? So what do you think as a French person, that relationship and getting to know people part of it?
That's a very good question. The first time I met Craig and I met his friends and his family, I was wondering, what is that thing about having a hug? Are we supposed to have hugs with everyone? But I barely know this person. How am I supposed to hug that person that I don't know about the first time? It's so intimate, right?
Yeah, but you bees everybody. Everyone has to be.
That's very intimate.
It's more about the distance we have between people. And you guys are very open, and you say what you think, and you ask questions that we don't ask, actually, French people, when you meet someone. And that perfect example would be Craig and I. Actually, we have 2 different approaches. It would be the American asking a lot of questions directly. Me, I'm more French and reserved, so I don't ask people about what are they doing in life, what are their job, or all that private thing, because sometimes you don't want to have a person define themselves by their job or something else. You want to have, a little, flexibility around it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the French way of seeing things, which is actually from the American way.
And that may be that American way of kind of rushing from place to place, like Craig was, rushing to have a meal here, and not slowing down to have the meal, and it may be that rushing to get to know somebody is that first question that we ask is, what do you do for a living? And it's like we're grasping for something to quickly talk about, because you either know somebody who does that for a living, you're interested in that, you've got questions to ask about that. And so you can make the small talk about the job.
Yeah.
Whereas in France, the conversation, it sounds like, especially over the food and the wine, is a bit more, it's more abstract. It's more, life driven. We're going to talk about the food. We're going to talk about the wine.
It's more romantic.
It's not so much getting to stuff.
That's right.
And I think that's a very American thing to do, is we have to jump into that conversation to desperately find something to talk about. Maybe we're not as good at just small talk and just being. I mean, that's something that I've experienced when I've traveled to Europe, is that Europeans tend to be very good at just being present where they are. And Americans are typically looking to the next thing they have to do on their list. We've got a plan, we've got an agenda, what time is it? We need to be here, there, and somewhere else. Even as a Southerner, that's something that we do.
Well,
and so
I defined by what we do, not who we are.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's a very good point, Lisa. Absolutely. Marilyn wants to know what her first stop should
Marilyn.
be in Paris. So what should her very first stop be in Paris?
Pick up Cuomo.
I know what Craig would say.
Yeah, you got to go to the doctor.
Shameless plug. No.
I say du pain des idées. I say my friend's boulangerie in the 10th, Du Pain et des Idées. It's amazing, and it's some of the best croissants in the city, and he does everything the traditional way, and it's just a boulangerie. It's not a patisserie. It's all true viennoiserie and bread, and he has these things. They're like snails. Like it's like a roll with pistachio, and they are to die for. So I would say Du Pain et des Idées.
Oh, I'm so hungry.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds so good. So we've got our bread lined up here for us. So, Michael, if we were going to sit down and have just, we're going to take a break. We're going to just kind of sit down and enjoy some bread and that fabulous butter that we were talking about. What would be the first wine you think that we should try when we go to Bordeaux? If we're going to have this little moment at a vineyard, at a winery in Bordeaux, what wine should we try first?
You know how some people go to wine regions and they go from winery to winery to winery to winery? I'm the kind of person that only wants to go to one winery a day because you can really settle in and enjoy the place and get to know the people. And when we were talking earlier about food and wine, a lot of the wineries are figuring it out to build restaurants at their properties and to have food and wine experiences. And so, and in fact, I was looking up a photograph here of, look at this. This is at a winery in Saint-Emilion. Look how they have created this beautiful outdoor space.
Oh, wow.
That is beautiful.
I like that.
Great.
And then, of course, I'll show you some food there.
Woo!
Ooh, food. Trying to get
Picture this. I mean, you can go to this winery, do sort of the winery experience, vineyards, into the winery, the barrel room, and then you just stop at the restaurant. It's right there, and you can taste their wines, you can taste other people's wines, and truly, you just spend the afternoon.
Right.
Do you have like a favorite in the area?
Wait, what did you say, Lisa?
Is there one, like if I go to Bordeaux or if I go to that region, is there one that I only have a day? Is there one that I should go to that you love?
Wow, one day. Oh my gosh. Well, this
Let's
one is
just say.
Chateau de Candel. It's in Saint-Emilion, and they're on a hillside, so the view is amazing. They own 4 wineries, so you can taste their wines from 4 wineries. In fact, they'll actually drive you around to their 4 wineries. So you could actually get a full experience with multiple wineries and a restaurant, one place, beautiful view, amazing lunch. What a day.
Maria, are you taking notes? My sister's on the.
Yeah.
And after a day like that, you're not going to go home. You're going to want to do it again the next day.
That's
We definitely need a tour company over here. We've got all the right people. Sam's going to take us around, and she's going to, Patricia and Sam.
I love touring wineries.
I'm 2 hours from Bordeaux and Saint-Emilion, so voila.
We're going to Sam's house.
Oh, I know what we're doing, Sam. When I come visit.
Well, my funny answer to the first place I would go to in Paris, that's the train station.
Which
You
one?
just said that you could go to Bordeaux.
The one to go to Bordeaux.
There you go.
All downtown. It's a complicated word. You would probably know it. Starts with an M. Right downtown. I have it in my book. What'd you say, Craig?
What do you think?
Yeah. And that's where the high-speed train goes directly to Bordeaux, right downtown. And Bordeaux has an electric tram system. You don't even need a car if you're downtown. And it comes right to the train station.
Perfect.
And the restaurants are spectacular. There's amazing places to stay.
All right, I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm coming, Sam. I'm coming, Sam.
Okay.
That's so French.
Nola, we have to go.
Absolutely. And we're going to go stay with Sam. And then we're going to go eat at Craig's. And we're going to bring Patricia, and she's going to show us everything we need to know. And then we're going to go visit Lisa's neighbor who makes couscous and cookies. And then we're going to go to Bordeaux and hang out and have wine with Michael. We've got a great plan here.
It's the perfect
Just
plan.
all need to get vaccinated so we can do it soon.
I hope
Yes.
Yes, please.
This sounds absolutely the best. We had a question about secrets about Paris that the average person doesn't know. So what is something that maybe we don't think about, or something that locals know that outsiders may not know about Paris? Something.
I just learned something about Paris.
What did you learn?
About the love locks coming down.
Oh,
I know a lot about that.
What is
Yeah.
that?
ask
So there
Lisa.
was a bridge where everyone was leaving love locks, and
Oh, the love locks. Yeah.
but they're taking them down.
Yeah,
Really?
they took them down. I'm the founder of No Love Locks, so I'm actually the reason why they took those locks down. Sorry.
Way to go, Lisa.
I worked with Lisa Taylor Huff. She's passed away now, but we started this movement because they are historic bridges, and it was really a tourist that was doing it. They didn't understand, and so we wanted to save the bridges and the what's the word in English? The patrimoine, the heritage of France. And we started a movement, and it took off like ridiculous wildfire. We were doing 6 interviews a day with like every.
Yeah, it was on TV. I must have
worldwide.
seen
It was crazy. We were like, what have we done? But then the mayor reached out. She was new mayor at the time, Madame Hidalgo, and she said, we're putting you on to my deputy mayor, and you're going to help us lick this problem. So we actually did that.
That's awesome. I must have seen you get interviewed then, because that's how I heard about it.
The other Lisa. Yeah, absolutely. I was on, it was ridiculous. We were on everything, CNN, you name it, we were on it. It was overwhelming. We didn't, it just took off. It's one of those things that it took off, but it's a good thing.
And what's interesting with being married to a Frenchman was hearing the French point of view. You know, Julien's like, love is not a lock, you know. and I wrote a chapter in my book. Sorry, I got to plug it. Love is not a lock.
Oh, it's in the hands. Why didn't I do that?
Mentioned in there as the person who, you know, helped bring it, you know.
For that.
That's right.
Why do you think love is not a lock, Julien?
Love is not a lock. It's a very selfish concept that you lock someone to you, and then when you see then you're putting a lock on someone else's heritage site. That's also selfish. So the whole thing was really selfish, but there were 65 tons of locks on the Pont des Arts and 35 tons on the Pont de l'Archevêché, which is the little bridge that goes toward Notre Dame. That's a lot of locks.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah, they had to rebuild.
People did think they were doing it out of love, so that is a lot of love.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of love.
For the wrong reason, but they did think they were doing it for love.
Heavy love.
Heavy love.
Of course.
So, Sam, I want to ask you a question. Speaking of love here, Sam.
Yeah.
So 20 years ago, you told your very handsome guy no. What did he do?
I was 19 years old. I met Jean-Luc at a cafe in Paris. Dame Tartine, à côté de, Dame Tartine. Craig, Julien, do you know Dame Tartine?
No, I heard about it.
Stravinsky Fountain, just in Fox. It's still there today.
Wow.
So my French lover came up in 19, and he was like, "Hey, baby, this bottle of wine is horrible." He nagged my friend and I because we had a bottle with a screw cap, and he was like, "Can my friend and I buy you a good bottle of wine?" And we were like, yeah, okay, but there's we will have to sit with you. So this is in 1989, and we spent time with them. We went out. We went to the Champs-Élysées for an apéritif, and then to a private dance club. They dropped us off at our youth hostel, And Jean-Luc, he wrote me 7 letters in 1989, and I didn't write him back until 20 years later. And we've now been married for 11 years.
Yeah. That's great.
So
And
what prompted you to write him back after all of that time?
I was going through a divorce. I was facing regrets. I was like, damn it, he was a nice guy. Why didn't I do? And it was supposed to be an apology. I was like, sorry, dude.
Sorry, dude.
At first, he didn't respond because my name, Samantha, he's like, am I going to be led to a porno site? Is this a trap? And so it took a week for him to write me back. And he was like, oh my gosh, your words are coming back to me like the wind. And he was being very poetic and cheesy.
Yeah.
My new word.
You should have screwed that line.
That's so romantic.
Yeah, 11 years almost later, I've been in France, married to him. It feels like yesterday, really.
See, that's the American in me, Julien. Sorry, asking all of the personal questions. Forgive me.
I'm like, hey, baby, here I am.
I love
That's a great story. It's a great story, and it's a great read. That's how I first discovered you, Samantha, years ago, reading that, and just loved it. It's so good. And your new book is fabulous. All those great recipes.
Well, you know, I should go read that book and like cook everything. Like Julia Child did, you know?
Family has a lot of recipes in it, and my new book does. And I can say I'm so very excited because for book 2 that's coming out, which is Sophie Valroux's Paris Secrets, I made up this recipe with a soup with an edible flower called borage. And I found it at Grand Prix today. I never tasted it. And it was like, oh! I'm going to eat it. I am not testing this crazy recipe I made up for the book. No, but I will eat the flour.
I love it. So as we're getting close to the time is flying here, and I know we've got so much going on, but I'm going to tell you my French story, you know. So we're going to move on to some New Orleans mystery and history here. And I always say New Orleans, like Paris, is a place where history lives and breathes. So I'm going to tell you a little bit. Let's learn about the French Quarter, because the French Quarter is actually very French, sort of. So we're going to figure out how the French Quarter is really. So in 1682, which is not old to those of you in Paris, but very old to those of us here in the United States, the French claimed Louisiana territory and named it for the French King Louis XIV, of course. And that's fairly common knowledge, right? It was 17 years later that the French settlers decided to found New Orleans, and they named it after a Bourbon duke. Engineers constructed 66 squares of walled village at the now iconic bend in the Mississippi River. And that is what became essentially the French Quarter. The streets that they designed and laid out were named after French royalty originally, although some of those names over the course of time have been changed. Now, Bourbon Street, one of the most famous streets in the French Quarter, actually has nothing at all to do with the drink bourbon. Okay, so now it does, but it didn't originally. Now it has a lot to do with it. However, the name actually came from the French dynasty. So this is not something people typically going down partying with their large drinks and hurricanes ever really think about. And that's actually where the name came from. So they were French for a very long time. And then all of a sudden we're Spanish now? When did that happen? What? You got all these people that only speak French. Their entire heritage is French. They cook French. Everything is French. And they go, wait, what? We're Spanish? They were Spanish. The very French settlers in New Orleans had actually been Spanish for a year before they knew anything about it. And this is not because news traveled slowly in those days either. This is because the French and Spanish rulers both knew that the settlers would be pissed, so they didn't tell them. They said, no, I'm not going to say anything. This is going to be bad. So neither side decided to actually tell the people of New Orleans what had happened. However, you can't keep a treaty a secret forever, no matter how secret the treaty is. When the settlers found out about the Treaty of Fontainebleau, they revolted. Of course, they rose up because this is what we do down there. It's like, no, you can't do that. But they did lose. So they lost. Something people don't realize is these very intricate ironwork balconies, the galleries of the French Quarter, and the enclosed courtyards were actually things that were installed on the buildings during the time of the Spanish French Quarter.
Oh.
Yes. So that's something most people don't know. So then they decided, being Spanish, can we be French again? And said, sure, but it's a secret again. So for only 40 years, Spain decided they'd had enough of this stuff, and Napoleon was giving them really bad vibes. So they secretly gave Louisiana back to the French in 1800. They were like, dude, if we don't give something to Napoleon to appease him, he's going to come stomping on us. We don't want that. And Napoleon said, sure, give me more land because that's what I'm all about. And so then he takes Louisiana back. And then there was that whole Haiti thing. It's like, oh, dang, now I got to go send people to Haiti. That went horribly wrong. And so Napoleon finally gives up and says, dude, this new world is too much. Probably what he said. Time to garage sale this place. And so, all right. So here we have the St. Louis Cathedral in between the Presbytery and the Cabildo. Oh, yeah, that last one's left over from the Spanish. St. Louis Cathedral, the Presbytery, and Cabildo. Like, why? Why didn't they change that one to something more French? But the funny thing is it was all of these buildings were designed by a French architect, but the Presbytery and the Cabildo, and actually the church, were funded by a man named Almonester, who had Spanish descendants but considered himself French. And his daughter, Michaela Almonester, who became the Baroness de Pontalba, who was responsible for a lot of stuff in the French Quarter, she went on to live in France, and her house is actually a U.S. embassy now. So the Baroness de Pontalba and her French, Spanish-ish family is actually responsible for a large part of Jackson Square, and her house is one of the U.S. embassies in France. So now it's like, wait, we're American? No, you're American is how they put it. So Jefferson relieved Napoleon of his Western burden here, but that didn't mean that the people of New Orleans really cared. In fact, they didn't give a flip at all. So even with an American governor, who the French really mocked mercilessly, they made horrible fun of Governor Claiborne. The people continued to speak French, consider themselves French. Canal Street became a clear dividing line between the French side of the city and the American side of the city, and there did the two cross. It took a long time before they would ever cross Canal. So even today, much of the food, culture, and some of the language still embraces the French heritage. So a whole lot of what we have in Louisiana, and especially the French Quarter, comes largely from France. It is still very much a part of our culture today. In South Louisiana, we fully embrace it, although a lot of it has come from the Creoles, the Creoles, the Cajuns, which came from Canada, of course, and come down. Creole is a word that typically people think about, the food and things like that. But Creole actually meant the firstborn of a French descendant living in Louisiana. So your parents would have come over as French. If you were born on Louisiana soil, you were then a Creole, no matter what color you were. So many people kind of designate that as a racial distinction, but that is actually not the case. So you would be a first generation French born in Louisiana. So one of our favorite words that we have in Louisiana is the word lagniappe, which of course means a little something extra. And so this is our lagniappe segment here. So Paris is the city of love, light, food, wine, lovely things. So we were talking about our love of cow products and dairy products. So if we love these things so much, authors, now you get to decide what is the sexiest cheese. We've got to talk sexy cheeses here. What is the sexiest cheese? Annie, I'm going to let you start us off because I know you have a great one. Before I go, mine is largely inappropriate, so look at me later. What cheese is just sexy to you?
Brie.
And why? You gotta give me your reason.
Okay. Because you can have it many ways. It can change. So it can be a different taste all the time. You can have it hot, you can have it cold. You can take off the top and put in some garlic or herbs, heat it up a little bit. It can be a different thing all the time. Very sexy cheese. That's my answer. I think it's a sexy cheese.
It's a sexy cheese. Who else has a sexy cheese?
Come on, Julia. Julia, tell us the sexy cheese.
Your book is about sex.
I mean, Patricia has to have the sexiest cheese because she has the sexy cheese man.
Oui, Philippe, the fromager.
Yes.
I'll take any kind of goat cheese.
Goat cheese.
Oh, yes.
Ah, I like Comté because it gets better with age.
I like anything with an unctuous center.
What did you say, Sam?
Like us women, we get
Yeah.
better.
Like fine wines, right, Michael?
Well, I think the sexiest cheese is the one that pairs with the wine that you're drinking.
Ah.
Good answer. Good answer.
Cheers.
Lisa, what do you think?
Truly a French thought.
Sorry?
Yes.
What cheese do you think is the sexiest, Lisa?
I said any cheese with an unctuous center.
Oh. Like that word. Sam, what do you think?
Well, funny. Today I went out and I bought a bunch of goat cheese covered. One is covered with papaya. It's very sexy. The other is covered with edible flowers. And the other one is covered with cranberry and nuts.
Yummy.
For New Year's. Because they were so pretty. I was like, oh, so pretty. Thank you.
Oh, so nice.
The pretty one. Now, Marilyn is thinking along the lines that I think.
Clever.
Is American single.
Oh, Marilyn.
I love it. And so mine, I told Annie that I wasn't sure I was going to share it, but it's my show and any show. And if we want to be inappropriate, we can be inappropriate. My sexiest cheese, I think, is Swiss because you can always find a hole that's exactly the right size. For whatever it is that you're using to put in that. But yes.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to go back down to Bourbon Street and we'll try to sell that down there.
That one.
There's going to all of a sudden be some Swiss cheese restaurant on Bourbon Street now.
There are a ton of people saying hello and making great comments about.
Yes. I see.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just got for the first time I can't say it. What is it? The charcuterie?
Charcuterie board.
Yeah, I got that. All right. For myself. So Serena sent me like everything you could put on it for my birthday because it's December 5th. And so I put it all together. It was awesome. I had everything on it. So then around Christmas, there's this big boom on the porch. I'm like, what was that? And I go outside. She sent me like every cheese, everything you could think of for this stuff. So I'm very grateful to her. So I have it for like the rest of the year because, that stuff never expires.
Yeah,
So
that's a good thing
I'm
about
very
cheese.
grateful. Yeah, so I have a lot of sexy cheese.
Lots of sexy cheese. We're gonna leave Annie alone with her cheese for a while. And I was gonna say like a raclette because it's hot. You gotta like, it's hot and steamy.
Hot and ready.
Raclette, raclette et monto.
Oh, yeah.
Monto.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
There's good stuff.
they're gone now, but we've had raclette, monto. Yep. And
So
I'm very
good.
friendly with Julien.
Because it has to be carefully undressed. I knew that would be a fun question. Anne wants to know where Jean-Luc is.
Oh no! My husband, he threatened to dance naked in front of me. I was like, no, I'm scared.
Everybody loves him because the last time we interviewed you, people were asking for him as well. So we just need to have him available, dressed and available.
Dressed and available. This is roughly a family show. I might have ruined that with the Swiss cheese comment.
Yeah, no, he's very much Frenchman, very much reserved. And so when you Google his name, I come up like, ah! And he's like, Sam, take all the pictures you have down of me off the internet. I'm like, too late. Too late, baby.
We know all about him. It's all over. Well, everybody's
That's
saying
right.
they want to see our books.
They want to see your books.
Yep, so we're getting there. We are about to get there. If you guys want to,
She made a slide. She made
I've
a
got a
slide.
slide for you guys. I've got a slide for you guys.
Yeah,
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 pull them up.
yeah.
If not, I do have a
I
slide
loved
for you guys.
the graphic that you made. I reposted. You put us all together. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Everybody hold your book up and smile.
I can't. It doesn't show. You can't see it.
There you go.
What did you say, Lisa? That's good.
There you
Wait,
go.
wait.
Yeah, right there.
Look at me out.
There we go.
Nice.
All
Got
right.
it.
Good job.
I'm so bad. I'm so bad at that.
Michael.
Because it's backwards. So as we kind of wrap things up, because I've taken so much of your time already, I want to let you guys know about the International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guides online, the book club, and then our online conference that we're doing in January. Annie has put together a fantastic panel of authors. Crescent City Sin, my newest release, is the July bonus book pick for the International Pulpwood Queens 2021 book club. And Patricia's book, Drawing Lessons, is also one of the book club selections as well. And Patricia will be joining Annie and I, as well as a host of other authors, on that panel. We are going to have so much fun, guys. You absolutely do not want to miss that.
You don't want to miss it.
It's going to be so fun. You can find some information on my page, on Annie's page, on the Pulpwood Queens page, as well as my page. And for those of you wanting to see the books, here are a few of them.
Oh, there you go.
Here are authors. Find your next great read here. And of course, these authors do have more than one book. But here is just a sampling of some of those beautiful covers and things that you can see. Check out Lisa and Anselmo also on YouTube. And while you were there, go ahead and pop over to Nola Nash Entertainment channel on YouTube. Subscribe there so that you don't miss a single episode of the Second Line Show. And this is where past episodes of the show live. So if you've missed one and you want to go back and see what all of the fun has been for the past many episodes, we have done, let's see, 13 episodes and 3 specials. So we've done quite a few shows since Annie and I got this rolling this summer as a way to virtually get some authors together since we didn't have access to live events. So there's lots of great authors and we've got a lot more planned for you as the year 2021 kicks off.
I mean, we are booking hard.
I mean, we really are. We are booking into July and August right now. So the Second Line Show is not going anywhere, guys. We've got some great lineups for you. Lots of fun. Annie does a fantastic job of putting folks together that have something in common. that we can talk about. And just like Paris, taking you on a virtual trip to where all of these authors find their joy and their hearts, we're going to do the same thing with lots of other authors over the course of this next year. So we're looking forward to those shows and coming into the new year with hope that we will be able to go to all of those places. But even if we can start doing live events again, know that the Second Line show will always be here having wine and crazy conversation, lots of laughs, lots of fun going into the new year. So cheers to all of you. Cheers to the parents.
Cheers.
For supporting us writers.
Thank you so much.
So much. Thank you.
Thanks,
Happy
Lois.
New Year.
Great to see you.
You guys are fantastic.
And Nola, thank you.
Awesome.
Too busy.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.